It was in the 1920s when a New Jersey pathologist first described what he called punch-drunk syndrome, a cluster of tremors, slowed movement, and speech difficulties seen in career boxers. Rebranded dementia pugilistica, for decades the disease we now call chronic traumatic encephalopathy was thought to occur only among those who sustained repeated blows to the head, boxers and now more widely accepted American football players. But the epidemiologic data suggests the syndrome is wider spread. Professional soccer players, for example, have a 2 to 3-fold higher risk of degenerative neurologic disease compared to the general public. Faced with data like that, it's natural to ask, why? Are soccer players genetically predisposed to diseases like Alzheimer's? Do the rare but sometimes severe concussions that occur during player-on-player collisions play a role? Or could it be something as simple as heading the ball? I know what you're thinking. You're remembering playing pee-wee soccer and heading the ball from about 2 inches above your head, but there's a huge difference between this and this. Professional soccer players and high-performing amateurs are heading balls that are coming in at seriously high velocity. Research has pegged the amount of force delivered to the head by a high-velocity shot, like a corner kick, to be as much as 500 pounds, albeit for a vanishingly short period of time. The acceleration of the head in that time period can be from 30 to 70 Gs. This is similar to the force experienced by football linemen coming in for a head-first tackle. So it's certainly plausible that heading the ball can lead to brain damage over time. But imagine trying to generate data to really investigate that hypothesis. You'd need to track headers across soccer players over time, follow them for decades, all the while collecting data about any other risk factors for dementia they might be developing, and then assess the correlation between those headers and the ultimate diagnosis. Researchers have tried to get around this using historical footage, which is limited, and player recall, which is biased, but none of these are really definitive. Now we have a new study that takes a different shot on the goal, focusing not on the distant diagnosis of dementia, but on the immediate effects on the brain after heading the ball, as measured through blood biomarkers of brain damage. The study from Dutch researchers appears in JAMA Neurology. Let me walk you through it. The researchers identified 302 male amateur soccer players in the Netherlands who agreed to participate during a match. These were all A-League amateur players playing games with official referees. Real athletes, in other words, despite the fact that they were not exactly professional. All the matches were videotaped, so researchers could identify every instance of heading a ball, which was classified across multiple parameters, including whether it was a high-impact header, one in which the trajectory of the ball exceeded 20 meters. Headers were pretty common. On average, there were 56 headers per match, with 72% of players doing at least one. Nearly half of players experienced at least one high-impact header per match. They got blood samples from the players before the match, immediately after the match, and in a subset 24 to 48 hours later. But that's not all. The very act of engaging in intense exercise can increase blood-brain barrier permeability. To account for that, all the players wore positioning transponders and heart rate sensors to capture total running distance, velocity, acceleration, and more. Those detailed data were dimensionality reduced via principal component analysis to an overarching exertion variable. With that, I need to introduce you to the stars of this particular game, the blood biomarkers. 6 biomarkers of brain damage vetted from prior concussion studies were chosen. I've listed them all here, but the ones that will stand out in this analysis are phosphorylated tau, a chaperone protein to support neuronal axons, and S100B, a protein present on astrocytes, the cells that support the neuron cell body. Let's look first at phosphorylated tau levels. Before the match, there were no differences in blood levels of this brain protein among players who would versus who would not head the ball in the match to come. This might be expected, but it's an important baseline to show that there aren't chronic differences in these biomarkers between players who are more into heading the ball, defenders, for example. After the match, p-tau levels went up in both groups, headers and non-headers. Remember, vigorous exercise does transiently disturb the blood-brain barrier, so that could be what we're seeing here. But p-tau levels were higher in those who headed the ball. You see a similar story with S100B, acute increases in both groups, but more dramatic increases in those who are using their noggin. The study has evidence of a dose response as well. Players who had more headers had greater increases in p-tau and S100B. And consistent with the author's underlying hypothesis, those who had high impact headers had greater increases than those who did not. These findings persisted after adjustment for exertion and a variety of other factors. In a situation like this, it seems to me that the simplest explanation is probably the most likely one. Hitting a fast-moving soccer ball with your head causes something that leads to brain proteins getting into the blood. We can't be sure it is direct damage to the white matter as we see in CTE or some other effect, but it's hard to ignore. Now, I should say that the researchers measured 4 other biomarkers as well, which did not show any relationship to heading, high impact heading, or frequency of heading. Moreover, the elevated level of the biomarkers had returned to baseline in the 24-hour follow-up tests. So maybe this is normal. Maybe when faced with some trauma, the brain revs up production of these scaffolding proteins. Maybe any damage is transient, a bruise, not a scar. But when you put these findings together with that original epidemiologic observation that soccer players have a significantly higher risk of neurodegenerative disorders than the rest of us, it seems like heading the ball may be, if not the totality of the mechanism, a significant portion of it. Is it time to consider a ban on this particular soccer move? In 2016, the U.S. Soccer Federation banned heading for soccer players under age 10 and limited heading during practice sessions for those up to age 13. Considering brain development continues well into young adulthood and high-impact headers become more common as skill levels increase, this seems like a well-intentioned idea that's unlikely to move the needle on dementia risk. Messing with the rules of a sport will always be met with resistance. When that sport is the most popular one in the world, well, it's bound to be an uphill battle. But I think studies like this showing short-term acute effects of headers may do more to convince the skeptics than the long-term ones using dementia as an outcome. The data here is simply harder to ignore. For Medscape, I'm Perry Wilson.